right, welcome to one more episode of Film Is Not Dead. And if you saw the last three episodes, and if you didn't, please go and watch them. We spoke more about why get into film, what's good about film photography, how does it improve your photography, what do you need to get into film, and so on. But we really never spoke about how do you really shoot film. And we're going to do that in this episode. So that's going to be interesting. And what's going to be more interesting is that we're not doing a run of the mill shoot, right? We're going to talk about large format photography. Now, we spoke about different film formats in the previous episode, so you can watch that. It spoke about 35mm film, medium format, and then large format. Large format is basically 4x5, 5x7, 8x10, and this one I have right here is a Swarovski 8x10 camera, which shoots with film sheets of the size 8 inches by 10 inches. Now, that's huge. That's about 60 to 61 times the surface area of 35mm film or full frame as you know it if you're shooting digital, right? That is massive. That's really big. So how do you really shoot that? What does this camera do? What kind of film do you use? We'll talk all about that. Are you ready? Let's jump in. Okay, so the first things first, what film do you use? Now, what did I use? I used the Ilford HP5, which is a 400 ISO film, and obviously 8x10. As I mentioned, this is an 8x10 camera. So obviously I can't open this and show you. The film is going to get exposed, but the film size is the sheet, and these are sheets. These are not roll films, right? These have this one has, I think, 25 sheets, if I'm not wrong. So it has about 25 sheets, which are 8x10. And that's what I really shot with. Now, why ISO 400? Because it's always safe. If you buy ISO 100 film and if the light is not great, you might have a problem. If you buy 800 and the light is too bright, then you might have a problem. So 400 is a good go-between film. It's pretty safe. Now, it will be slightly grainy, but that's okay. It's an aesthetic that is, special about film photography, so you should not really mind grains in a 400 film. So all-purpose good film, Ilford, that's what I used. Now, the next thing that you need to do to shoot is have something like this, which is a holder, right? This is called a film holder, and you can insert film inside this on both sides, right? So this side and this side. Now, what I do is I put small tapes here, and then I put the film, and then I just name, like if I'm taking two holders, I name it as HP5, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I shoot in that order, so I know what I've shot with, and when I'm developing, I know which picture I took, when or what number corresponds to which picture. So that's the holder. Now, I cannot show you right now how to insert this in the holder. We'll do a separate episode, but that has to be done in complete darkness. So you get dark tents or dark bags in which you push everything inside, you push your hand in, and without seeing, obviously, because your hands are inside the whole dark tent, you insert the film. And there is a specific way of doing it, which we can look at in another episode. So you insert the film, and then there's a dark slide here, right? So the dark slide, you remove this dark slide, you put the film in, and then close the dark slide. That's how you load film. So you have a loaded film, 2 sheets, or if you have 2 holders, then 4 sheets, and then you have the camera, and you're ready to shoot. Now let's look at the lens I shot it with. Now, large format lenses are big. Now, this is a fixed focal length lens. This is a 360mm lens, but there is a crop factor, but this is a reverse crop factor. So a 360mm lens for an 8x10 is an equivalent of a 60mm lens. So you basically divide the focal length by 6 to get the 35mm equivalent. So the field of view that this lens gives you is of 60mm. That's what I shot it with. Now, there's another specialty of this lens. The lens basically has the shutter inside it. So there is no shutter in the camera. If you see the camera, there's nothing. It's just hollow. It's just two frames and then bellows which keep it completely dark. So there's nothing there. So the lens has the shutter open, shutter closed, tuck the shutter, click. Now the lens also has the aperture and the shutter speed. The apertures on this one run from f6.8. Now 6.8 on a 360mm for a large format will have a lot of depth of field or a very shallow depth of field. We think f1.4 lenses, 1.8 lenses have shallow depth of field. This one, even at 6.8, has amazing shallow depth of field and beautiful bokeh. Of course, we don't need that for the shoot, but just saying. And then it runs up to f64. Apart from that, the shutter speed runs from bulb and then 1 second, 2 seconds, 4 seconds, 8 seconds, 15, 30, 60, up to 125. So this doesn't run into thousandth of a second or 8,000th of a second. It tops off at about 1/125, but that's pretty good for large format. So that's really this lens. It's heavy. This is a rodent stock 360mm lens. So that's what I shot it with. Now, the angle I chose to shoot this railway station, it's Temple in Texas. It's a nice structure. It's a beautiful structure. It's part of a series I'm doing. So this shot was, part of that. The sun was beautifully hitting the building. Great time of the day. But I was at an angle, right? Now, if I was facing the station, the wall was running that way, right? And now I wanted the near end of the building and the far end in focus. Now for that, in digital, if you're shooting or with any camera you're shooting, what would you do? You would probably make the aperture very narrow. But in large format, you can do something else too. You can actually tilt the lens. Now it's called the shine plug principle, and we'll do a special episode on the shine plug principle and how to use the shine plug principle to get everything in focus. Now, to really tilt, this is what I can do. So look how much I can tilt the lens. I don't need to do it this much, but there is so much of leeway available for me to tilt both ways to get everything in focus, right? And I can also tilt it the other, the vertical tilt, so that way. So I can tilt it this way, or I can tilt it this way, or I can do both. That's how flexible this camera is. Now to do this on an SLR or a mirrorless, you'll need a tilt shift lens, right? You need special lenses which cost a lot, but on a large format camera, all this is automatically available. So that's what I did to get the whole building in focus. So I didn't necessarily have to dial the aperture to f64 or whatever. I think it was at, if I'm not mistaken, it was at f18 or 22 or something like that. And I was able to really still get everything in focus. So use the shine plug principle and focused the camera. So the metering was done with my always trustworthy Pentax spot meter, and I used the zone system. Now I did overexpose it a little bit, or I chose the zone so that nothing is really almost all black, because the foreground had a lot of shadow and I didn't want that to become entirely black. I wanted shadow details, now which necessarily meant that the sky would be very bright, because although it was beautiful blue, but I didn't have any red filter, or I didn't use any red filter, which could have cut the blue and rendered the sky dark, but I didn't have that, or I didn't use that. So the sky would be bright, which was okay, but as long as the building was well exposed and the foreground had details, I was good. So that's how I really metered it, and then it came to getting the focus right. Now, apart from doing the tilt and stuff, now what you have to do to focus, the lens does not move. So on a large format camera, the lens does not move. What happens is this whole front standard moves. So you focus it by, and that's why the bellows exist. so that the front standard can actually move back and forth for you to achieve focus. And you see that in the ground glass, whether it's focused or not. So that is why, to make it dark, you put the dark cloth on top of your head and then you watch. Now this is tilted, the image is tilted, left is right, right is left, and you get magnification glasses, loupes to look through to make sure the image is absolutely sharp. And once that is done, here's the process. Now, when you're focusing, your shutter is wide open, your aperture is wide open. That's how you focus. Now, once you've done that, you dial in your aperture. So you take the aperture to, let's say, f22, and then you close the shutter, and then you cock the shutter, and then you're ready. Now, what is the next step? So once you've done the focus, you have closed the shutter, you have dialed in your aperture, and you could have cocked the shutter or not, but now it's time to put the film in. So here is the holder. So you can basically pull the back using the spring action and then insert the dark slide, or insert the holder, sorry. And then now I'm not going to pull this off because I think there's film inside the holder, but now you can pull this off because it's all light sealed. The shutter is closed, the aperture is dialed down, and the shutter is, it's not letting any light through. So now it's safe to pull the dark slide out. Now, once you pull the dark slide out, remember your film is open now. Your film is being not exposed because everything is shut, but it could be exposed. So now what you do is you can cock the shutter, click. That's the picture. Obviously, you don't want to be in front of the lens and you won't be able to see what you're shooting. It's all shut down by the holder. Now, once you've shot, remember, this is a very important step. Now, if you see this dark slide, at the top, one side will be white and the other side will be black. That's an indicator that whether the film is exposed or not. So when you pull it, make sure when you put it back, you turn it around. So when you turn it around, the black now should be facing outside. So you know you've already exposed the film. Now there are other ways of, you can note it down, you can make a mark on the holder. You remember I put a tape, you can do all of that. But there has to be some way of remembering that you've exposed that. And if not, you might put it again, you might double expose it, and a lot of things can go wrong. So you want to do that. And now that you've done, your picture is taken, you remove the dark slide. You remove the holder, and you have exposed and got the picture on the sheet of film. So that was the picture taking process, and that is why in an earlier episode I said if you're shooting large format, you're probably doing like 1 frame a day, 2 frames a day, maybe 5 frames a day, but you're not shooting thousands of pictures in a day, right? Because one shot takes end to end, from loading the film and all that stuff, takes you about half an hour, 1 hour, something like that. So now once I came home, I developed the negative in a developer called D19. Now you can do it in pretty much any normal developer which develops HP5, which could be Ilfosol or DDX and so on. But I use D19 because that gives you a much contrastier negative. And why do I need that? Because I'm trying to contact print this, probably do a platinum palladium print again, which I will talk in a later episode. So I do platinum palladium printing, and for that I need contrasty negatives. So I developed it with D19. So that process is basically, again, you take the holder, you take it under the or inside the bag, the light sealed bag, you open it up, you pull the sheet out, put it in a tray for developing, and then you close the tray, and that tray is light sealed now. You take the tray out, and then first you put the developer and then agitate it and follow the instructions for developing. After that, you do something called stop. So the stop bath is again a liquid. The stop bath basically stops that process of that reaction. And the third is fixing, which makes the image permanent on the negative. So that I've already done. And now the negative is ready. Now this negative now can be printed. It's ready to print, or it can be scanned. So what I did was I used my GFX 100 Mark II with a 110 mm lens to scan it. Basically, I kept it on top of a light tray and just took a photograph of it. And then this is the final image. But this is still a digital image. What I'm also going to do is actually print this negative on a piece of photographic paper and get an analog print. So for that, we'll do one more episode. Let us know how you like this. Let us know if large format photography is intriguing. Let us know more details that you want to know about large format photography, and we can plan more episodes. But do subscribe, follow our channel, because we're going to come up with way more interesting stuff in the future. Thank you and see you soon.